Hello and welcome to HomeTech. HomeTech is a podcast dedicated to discovering new and emerging technologies for the home. We discuss news about the Internet of Things, home automation, and more. I'm Seth Johnson in Florida, and I'm joined by Jason Griffin in Los Angeles.
Welcome to the HomeTech Podcast, Episode 9. I'm Jason Griffin in Los Angeles, and as usual, I'm joined by Seth Johnson. How are you doing, Seth?
Doing well, Jason. How are you?
Doing great. Ready to jump in here.
Yeah, there's a super busy week in home technology this week with a bunch of different announcements from different companies and all good stuff. So yeah, I think we
it
should
definitely was. I agree. Lot to cover this week. So let's just jump right in. First thing I saw was that Samsung, which had announced their smart home service, I believe their first formal announcement was back at CES this year. But it looks like they're officially made their global debut in Korea and as well as here in the States with their smart home platform.
Yeah, it looks really, really exciting because Samsung does a lot of things. I mean, there's not one piece of electronics that they make that, you probably don't have any. Like, they make everything from washing machines to refrigerators to TVs to Blu-ray players. If they can make some of the stuff all kind of talk together, I think they just have an advantage over any other manufacturer out there, since they're the ones actually producing the products that people actually want to control. And they already make some. I don't know if you've run into this, like on the Samsung TVs, they make like a little universal remote thing now. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a pain for us integrators because we end up having to turn all that stuff off, but it kind of comes like on by default, and you have to, take some time kind of figuring out how to halfway set it up and then turn it off so we can use our remotes rather than the remote that comes with the TV. But if I was just a consumer and I bought one of these TVs and I just had a cable box, a Blu-ray player, I could easily control those devices with the TV remote, no problem.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the question. We sort of straddle that line between professional home automation and the do-it-yourself scene, and we're interested in both, obviously. But one of the things with Samsung is they've been sort of embracing these quote-unquote smart features for quite a while, but it's always been, or at least it's always felt to me a little bit like a closed ecosystem, like that things will play together very nicely if they're all Samsung. But as soon as you start to step outside of that ecosystem, then that's where you run into the questions and the reliability issues and things like that. So with the smart home platform, that's ever since I first saw it come across my radar, that was my first question is, how open will this really be? I mean, Samsung has a huge footprint in people's homes in general. I think bigger than a lot of people even maybe realize necessarily, but it's just hard to say. Like, we both know how difficult really bringing all of these systems together and making them all communicate and communicate reliably can be. So I think, to me, that's the big question with Samsung Smart Home is how successfully they're going to be able to execute, or if, I guess, they're even going to try and execute in terms of integrating with third-party devices and bringing, disparate systems together, or is this going to be sort of an exclusively Samsung sort of product where if you go out and buy the Samsung, refrigerator and washing machine and TV, then it's going to work great. But if you step outside of that ecosystem, then you're pretty much out of luck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think if history is any indication how this is all going to play out, they have what's the little watch that they came out with? The Samsung wristwatch.
Oh yeah. The name is eluding me right now, but I know, and it kind of actually, I think, moved away from it right after it came out and started talking about version 2. I don't think it was a very big success for them.
Well, yeah, I think they just came out with like the second rev of it, but it only worked with like a specific Samsung phones, I guess. It wasn't like a complete, Yeah, I think Samsung's not afraid to say, I'm sorry, you have to, just like Apple. I mean, um, I'm going to make a joke about Samsung copying Apple too much if I head down this road, but yeah, I don't think they're afraid to say, hey, this is our Samsung ecosystem. If you want to play, you have to have Samsung devices. So
Hmm.
yeah, just like Apple. Um, the, and if that's the case, though, it really does help their platform, because it's a lot easier to program a platform for just a couple of handful of TVs that are all kind of on the same software and everything, rather than trying to program a platform and enable a platform to connect to all of the TVs. So I think it just gives them a huge advantage over kind of anybody else in the field, and I think they're poised to probably be one of the leaders in kind of a basic home automation if they do it right. If it's a big company though, so this may be just some division announcing something, and the washing machine guys they don't even know what's going on. So we'll see what happens.
That's quite possible. That is quite possible. Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to it's a similar conversation to the one we had last week when we were talking about Verizon deploying their home automation system and how they stuck with exclusively Zigbee as opposed to a more open architecture. And this kind of dovetails with that a little bit in the sense that, Samsung, like when I talk about Samsung being a little bit of a closed ecosystem, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just is something that you have to consider as the end user, as somebody who's looking to purchase this technology. You have to kind of be aware of that. There are some people that like to tinker and like a little bit more of an open architecture where they know that they can go out and buy devices from any manufacturer. And maybe those are Zigbee or Z-Wave or Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. And they know that they're going to have a way to make all of these pieces talk to each other. And that's what they prefer. But then there's other people that just want a more simple plug and play solution that might be a little bit more reliable, and going with a closed system like Samsung might be a better bet. So you're kind of trading off flexibility in terms of integration for perhaps a more reliable system.
Right, and one that's far superior in setting up and operation, ease of use, and that kind of thing. I mean, just imagine
Exactly.
setting up a Samsung Home on off of your TV. And it just kind of walks you through, just like the initial startup screen does on those new TVs. I mean, that's pretty killer.
Right.
It works
Right.
well. So
Samsung could be a huge player in this market because, like Apple has shown us, if you bring together the hardware and the software in a way that everything works together, talks together successfully, and it's reliable, then that's what consumers really want. I think they care less generally about being able to integrate every single different device from every manufacturer. Most people just want a system that's simple and they want it to work reliably. So we'll see. We'll see if Samsung can pull this off.
yeah, well, I mean, it looks pretty cool. Speaking of closed ecosystems, Amazon announced a streaming TV device, or a TV streaming device, like it's called the Fire TV. And I think we're going to talk quite a bit about that in this episode, so we'll just get to that a little bit later. But it looks pretty cool, and I know you've got some stuff some research that you've been doing on it.
Yeah, it looks like a compelling product, definitely. I mean, it's kind of, in hindsight, surprising that it took Amazon this long to enter into the set-top box market. So like you hinted at, though, we're going to talk a little bit more about that later in the show in the featured section. But yeah, definitely worth mentioning. I mean, it was huge news, obviously, in the tech space. So we'll touch on that in a little bit.
Cool. One thing I noticed this week, I don't know if this was announced, but I ran across a pretty cool CNN article about Qualcomm's all-join, another standard for home automation communication. This seems to be kind of like the backbone that equipment would use to talk to each other. And this just kind of, Qualcomm's a huge player in the embedded systems market. So they're the guys that are inside the devices that we all know and love. Since they came out with this, it gives manufacturers who use their products the flexibility and ease of talking across platforms. It's just another standard, so it's kind of cool. So hopefully, we'll see some more all join devices out there. We're in the glorious age for standards at this point. It seems like this is it. So
I mean, for people that might not understand, one of the challenges right now with the Internet of Things and home automation and all of these different devices that speak different languages is that getting them all to communicate together seamlessly is very, very difficult. And that's still one of the big things that separates a professionally installed home automation system from a do-it-yourself home automation system. And that's where the big gulf is, and we've talked about that before. But eventually, that bridge, that gap will get bridged. And AllJoyn is trying to solve that exact problem. So you have all these different devices that use different protocols. They speak different languages, basically. So it's hard for them to communicate with one another. And as soon as you see these devices start to standardize on a single language, that's when we're really going to see more seamless, explosive growth in this market. So that's, Qualcomm is establishing AllJoyn, and they're trying to make this as into like the go-to protocol for Internet of Things devices. So the back end of that gets a little bit techie, but just to understand fundamentally what they're trying to accomplish with AllJoyn, it's a fairly simple concept. It just fundamentally, but on the back end, it's actually extremely complicated. So that's kind of what Qualcomm is after here. And
yep, and there's a pretty good CNN article that we'll link to in the show notes that goes over pretty much everything that they're trying to do. It's actually a pretty in-depth article, so I was kind of happy to read it. Speaking of show notes, you can find those at HomeTech.fm/show/9. It's where these show notes will live, and you can click on the links and it'll take you right to the articles. Another cool product that came across the wire, so to speak, is that Mosaic Wi-Fi wireless audio system. Looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it does. It looks sort of comparable to Sonos for people who are familiar with that. And it's on Kickstarter right now, so it looks to be a little bit preliminary. I don't actually know if I would assume they're not shipping product yet since it's on Kickstarter. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, it looks like it's an investment type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty preliminary, but it's a hi-fi wireless music solution. And they've actually got some interesting tie-ins, and they're sort of marketing it as a wireless music solution, but also with home automation and Internet of Things features. So we'll include a link to that in the show notes, but I don't think it's a Sonos killer at all. Sonos is so well established, and Sonos is absolutely killing it. But this does look like an interesting alternative, and I'll be curious to see, if where this project goes.
Yep, competition's always good. I mean, Sonos, like you said, Sonos is the big dog on the block, and these guys kind of say they're going after Bose. I know from talking with some people at Sonos that Sonos has been going after Bose for a number of years now. So I guess Bose is actually the big guy on the block. Sonos is next in line, and then you have you'll see these little guys like the Mosaic popping up, and they have some pretty interesting features, like you can stream audio Bluetooth from your phone to the Mosaic player. That's pretty cool because I can't do that with Sonos. Sonos doesn't have Bluetooth built into it. Mm-hmm. So hey, maybe Sonos will come out with a piece where I can do that. That would be great. But in the meantime, all these little guys are going to pop up from around the world. This one looks like it's based overseas because the Kickstarter page is in pounds. It looks like the device is going to cost about $200. That's what I can kind of translate from that. So hopefully they'll do well, and we'll see some product come from them. So
it looks like a slightly different architecture. I mean, the only hardware I've seen of everything I've looked at is kind of this more comparable to a Bose style system, or with the Sonos, you got the Play 3 and the Play 5, where it's an all-inclusive piece with the speakers built into it and everything. Sonos obviously has the option to have your units where you can plug them into a separate receiver or separate speakers, and then they also have their standalone unit. So this one appears to be just the one standalone unit, but some of the videos I've seen look pretty cool. Like, you can group them together, so you can put multiple mosaics in your house and then group them together for sort of a party mode type of environment. And they appear to have a lot of support for various streaming services. And like you said, Bluetooth, streaming straight from your phone. I mean, Sonos is supporting that now with AirPlay, obviously not Bluetooth.
No, they don't support AirPlay. So Sonos has a built-in feature on their app where you can play from the app to directly into the player itself, but you can't play from AirPlay. Can play anywhere on an iPhone. It can play anywhere that there's music on the phone. So if I have a different app that I use for podcasting, and I do, I can't play out of there into the Sonos system. I don't know if that's any different on Android. I know that the Sonos app on Android actually sets up as a Sonos device and uses the Sonos Net as a device. I don't know if that's any different, but they're not supporting AirPlay. I wish they did.
Yeah, so. No, I see your point. Like, seems like maybe a minor distinction, but it's not. So, from your Sonos app on your iPhone, you can play music, but you're right. It doesn't necessarily mean they support AirPlay. Like, they don't support AirPlay because you can't play anything. There are a number of things you can play using AirPlay, but you can't stream those to your Sonos system. You can only stream what's available to that Sonos app, namely iTunes.
Well, yeah, it's whatever is in your music library. Yeah, and you can buy a like $100 Airport Extreme and use that as a input into the Sonos device, and then you get an AirPlay device out of it. It seems just kind of,
it's a little bit clunky.
Yeah, kind of clunky. And these guys, I mean, it looks like to be what, $200, $200 or $300, about the same price as the Sonos Play 3. Looks like they'll have Bluetooth built in, and I can just go straight from the phone directly to the player. So that's pretty killer. So hopefully we'll see something. We'll link to the Kickstarter page in the show notes, and you guys can go over there and check them out. Speaking of the UK, it looks like Nest is now available in the UK.
So I saw that.
I didn't realize that they weren't shipping everywhere. It seems just kind of like be one of those products that everybody talks about, but I guess we're just kind of isolated here.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I had the same reaction. I guess I had always assumed that it was more of a global product, I guess. And so when I saw that come across, I just hadn't realized that they weren't shipping over there, but they are now. So that's good. Although I saw there was a Nest recall this week, I believe, on just the Nest Protects. Is that correct?
It looks like the wave feature where you have a smoke alarm go off, and one of the features on the Nest Protect was that you could just, if it was a false alarm, you could reach up and wave towards the Nest Protect on your ceiling, and it would turn the alarm off. And I guess there's a letter from the CEO that we'll link to in the show notes, saying basically that there's some certain conditions where that just simply won't work. And they're sending emails out to everyone who has purchased a Nest Protect, and saying basically they're recalling them all. At least that's what I've been reading. They've already, from what I've understand, they've already turned off that feature. So they don't want any alarms to be missed.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunate for them. I mean, that's a pretty big recall, but
it's Google's problem now.
They've got Google money behind them, so they'll weather the storm.
Yeah, I think they do all right. It does kind of suck to have that, but you know what? It sounds like they're out in front of it. It's a pretty serious issue, especially for life safety being involved. So you definitely don't want to have kind of a $200 smoke detector. Or I think yeah, they're about $200, 129 something like that.
Hmm.
Um, on your ceiling and not have it not detect a fire. That would be pretty bad. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and I guess that's sort of I don't know, maybe a cost of doing business. I guess when you get into that sort of that sort of business model is that this is very serious. I mean, it's not like your lights can't turn on or you can't get your TV to turn on or something. A smoke alarm could literally be life or death. So I'm sure they're taking it very seriously.
Yep, looks like they're doing the right thing and getting everything recalled. Um, so you want to jump into this Amazon TV thing? This looks
Yeah,
pretty
let's do
cool.
it. Let's do it. It was very big news. That is probably the biggest news in home tech this week in general was that Amazon is finally in the set-top box game. And I think in hindsight, to me, it seems a little surprising that it took them this long because it just seems like such a natural fit to me.
Yeah, I mean they have the Amazon Instant Video. Um, I guess I've used it quite a bit here. We've been watching some back episodes, some TV episodes, um, using Amazon Instant Video, and I watched a couple movies the other night. I'm using my PlayStation 3 though. I'm not using um, anything fancy. I'm not using like a computer or anything attached to the TV. So I don't know what this is going to give me over using the PlayStation 3. So
Well, that's what the question really comes down to in my mind is what's going to make this product compelling for people that maybe already have a set top box that's dedicated for streaming. So there's obviously already a lot of competition for Amazon. There's the Apple TV, there's the Roku. Uh, Google just got into this game to a certain extent with Chromecast, which is about a third the price of all of their competitors, but it's a slightly different architecture, a little bit different user experience, but all the same, it's got a lot of the similar features. And
I
so
wouldn't say
really,
it's that much cheaper. We might be able to get into that later. But
well, Chromecast.
I mean, well, the Chromecast device itself is cheap, but the hardware that you need to actually connect to a Chromecast to actually play the movie to the Chromecast is going to cost you more than what this Amazon TV is going to cost you.
Yeah,
So you still
yeah,
need to have a phone, you still need to have a computer, and those aren't
yeah.
exactly $100. So
Right, but most people already have that. I think it was Google's assumption with the Chromecast. It was like, let's make a product that's as cheap as possible because pretty much everyone in their target market already has the devices that are capable of this sort of processing. So
right,
that's
that
kind of
makes
a
sense.
separate, yeah, that's kind of a separate tangent. But all the same, I mean, these are all being lumped together. Everything you read online is going to compare Chromecast into this same sort of group, right? But really, you're right. The more accurate comparison would be Fire TV, Apple TV, and Roku. And how do these three stack up? And which one should end user choose?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, those boxes. I think the Roku runs what $79.
Yeah, I think Roku has a couple of different models. I'm not as familiar with Roku. Um, you and I are both home automation professionals. I don't know about you, but I would say probably for us, 90% of the time we're installing Apple TV. And
Yeah, same
um,
here.
so I was actually surprised. One of the articles I was reading related to this Amazon story is I think Parks Associates had a study that said that Roku is actually the market leader, which really surprised me. And I haven't taken the time to verify that or anything, but they were saying that of these little streaming devices, Roku leads the field with like 37% of households, and then they had Apple TV, I think, at 24%,
Wow.
which I thought was really surprising. That seemed a little weird to me?
Well, I mean, you and I are kind of in the upper echelon of home installs in the U.S. and so, but I mean, Roku. It looks like I was looking on their website. They have devices that go down to $49 for just very basic type devices. So At that price point, anybody can really afford a Roku player.
Hmm.
And that's, but they do have a box that's like their Roku Player 3, I think is what it's called. Let's see, the Roku 3. That's $99. So it looks like it just has everything. And it only works on HD TVs. So, um,
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the primary consideration for me, and I get asked this, I've actually already been asked this by a client. I'll be honest. I have a client right now that we're doing an install for, and he's a very techie guy. He's a software guy. And before I had even seen Google alert come across my email, he had emailed me and said, "Hey, I just saw Amazon release this box. Like, we're talking about doing a Roku. Should we do this one instead?" And so that was the very first time it came across my radar. It was the day that it was announced. And I started looking into it, and really there are considerations for his particular install that most users aren't going to have to consider, because we're putting in a distributed video system where the sources are all isolated down in the basement and that sort of thing. When it comes to just most users and DIY people and people who just want another set-top box, it's a reasonable price point. You can enter the market for pretty cheaply. It really comes down to a couple things, in my opinion: the user interface and the content available. So that's always been my point to people who ask me is, but before the Fire TV came into the market, it was really Roku or Apple TV, and it was like, if you want to rent movies from iTunes, go with Apple TV. If you want to rent movies and shows from Amazon, go with the Roku. And that was really the primary differentiator, in
yeah.
my opinion. And so this one kind of sits in the middle there, and I don't know. It's a natural fit for them, but it's kind of, I still feel like I wrap my head around, which one is going to be best for which particular person.
So sorry about that. We had a little small technical difficulty, as you could hear, and I think we're back online. Jason, you there?
Yes, I am. We're back, I think.
The Internet of Things strikes again. So you were talking about some of the differences between the products that exist, and the services that are provided on each one of them. And kind of, let's just bring this back around to the Amazon TV, or the Fire TV. That device is has got a lot of these services. It looks like it's built into it, but it also, I mean, it's going to be Amazon's number one way of bringing people their streaming services, their on-demand services.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it really comes down to, there's two sides to it. There's the end user who's considering purchasing this device, and they're looking at the market and they're going, do I purchase Apple TV or Roku or now Fire TV? And honestly, it's not an easy decision. I mean, there's so much overlap between them. So it really, like I said, comes down to content sources. Do a little bit of research there. The user interface. I think it's probably going to take the Fire TV a little bit of time to get rolled out. There's probably going to be a little bit of hiccups here and there. Maybe not, though. I mean, Amazon's known for their infrastructure, so this might be one of the smooth rollout, pretty much. But really, at the price point, you could afford to buy multiple ones of these. But really, people just want one. Like, they just want to have that one device that's a go-to. And I think Fire TV looks like a compelling option. It's not going to give you, obviously, if you want to rent movies from the iTunes store, this isn't going to give you that. But conversely, if you have an Apple TV and you want to rent movies from Amazon, it's not going to give you that. So it just really comes down to content selection, in my opinion.
Right, and Amazon is not a dumb company. I mean, they're in this for the long game. So, you know, there's some notes in here, that you've put down. They can probably subsidize the cost of the hardware and put ads on it. I don't think Apple would ever put an ad on an Apple TV product. So they're probably never going to subsidize an Apple TV. So you could have a situation where the cost of a Fire TV is going to be, $20, $0, who knows? And
Yeah,
then, you compare that to the Apple TV that, looks like it does the same thing to most people, for $100.
right.
So which do you pick? Well, that one's free. I'm going to go with that, and I'll just ignore the ads on it, like
Yeah,
everything else.
yeah. No, and that's definitely a consideration. Right now, it looks like it's going to be the same price as an Apple TV. And one thing kind of jumped to my mind when I saw that is, Apple might not subsidize with advertisements, but Apple's not dumb either, and they're getting a lot of their revenue, or at least a share. I shouldn't say a lot, but at least some of their revenue from that Apple TV is coming from the fact that they know when you buy it, you're going to rent movies and rent TV shows off of the iTunes store that you probably wouldn't or might not rent otherwise unless you owned that device. So I've seen this mentioned on a ton of blogs, and people are talking about it like this is a sort of an exclusive competitive advantage that Amazon has, which I kind of disagree with. It's a little bit different with Amazon because they can maybe bring the cost down a little bit more just to try to drive you in based on what you're watching. They could maybe show you advertisements to get you into their retail store to buy, God knows what. Like they've got everything under the sun basically available on Amazon. So that does give them a little bit of a unique opportunity, in my opinion. But the fact that they can subsidize their hardware in general, to me, doesn't seem exclusive to them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But yeah, and of course, the only reason that is a question is because they've done the same thing, I guess, with a Kindle, right? I mean, there's a free Kindle or one that costs next to nothing now because they can, when you turn the Kindle off, it still kind of stays on and displays an ad or something, and that in that space. So when you pick it up, there's an ad waiting for you. That maybe what they do for this device. Who knows?
Yeah, it's one of those things. I think they've been sitting back and kind of watching, and they're in a unique position right now to move into the market. They're able to look at all the feedback that people are leaving on other set-top boxes because you can go. That's one of the interesting things that I saw pointed out is that Apple TV and Roku, a lot of people go and buy those off of Amazon, right? So Amazon wins no matter what with this proliferation of more set-top boxes and streaming devices. So they win right off the bat just by driving awareness of this sort of product into the market, which is an interesting point, maybe kind of a side note, but still interesting. But, it's a logical move for Amazon, and I do think that I'm not obviously going out on a limb to say that this is going to be a real contender. And I know for me, I mean, here at my home, we've been considering getting another Apple TV for one of the bedrooms, and I'm actually considering maybe buying one of these just to test it out. I mean, it's the same price, a lot of the same sources. We really primarily watch Netflix, so might be worth trying this out just to kind of get a feel for the user experience and that sort of thing. I mean, that's really where the differentiator is going to be.
Right. And they have a number of features like a voice control that they're touting. I saw somewhere that they said you won't have to peck around with the remote to enter search queries or passwords and that kind of thing. I think they're kind of poking fun at the horrible user experience that you get off of Roku and Apple TV.
Absolutely.
But I saw somebody tweet, I guess they've already got their Amazon TV. The first thing you do is type in your Wi-Fi password, and you have to kind of peck around and get that entered the same way that you enter everything else on your Apple TV or Roku. So
one of the most maddening things about Apple TV is just the setup that you have to do with the remote. And, before you can once it's set up, you can use the remote app and you can pull the keyboard up on your iOS device and type. And that's great. But yeah, that initial setup can be a real pain.
Yeah, you can also pair a Bluetooth keyboard, like one of those Apple Bluetooth keyboards with it, and use that if you wanted. Kind of a expensive solution, and it doesn't really help that if after Apple sends an update down to your Apple TV that it loses all your passwords. Um,
Right. Yeah.
it doesn't really help the cause.
Which is
So,
great. We love that.
oh, absolutely. Just why would I update? Oh, it's automatic updates are turned on, and now all my passwords are gone. Thanks, Apple.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, there was a couple of other things about this that I thought were pretty interesting.
Well, just to
For,
loop back for 1 second, didn't mean to interrupt you, but just before we move on, I think the voice search thing is kind of interesting because they're really touting that as one of their selling points. And, we had Ted on from VoicePod a while back, and as he discussed, and as we've discussed, voice is still a pretty cutting edge technology. I mean, it's a very difficult thing to get right. And it's one of those things where even a very low failure rate, like a 5 or 10% failure rate, is enough to really drive end users crazy and just make them give up on that feature. Like they just don't want to deal with it. They'd rather go back to their tried and true handheld remote than deal with, not having accurate voice recognition. So I think, in my opinion, at least, that'll be really important for Amazon to get right. If they're going to advertise that as a differentiator, that's one thing that I'll be really curious to see if that actually works the way they're saying it does.
no, definitely. And that will beat any remote that you have. I mean, just being able to say, what are the Orphan Black? I think is one of Amazon's produced kind of TV series, I guess. I was actually watching one the other day because we were kind of curious as to what it was. Pretty good show. But if you could just walk up to the Fire TV and say, play me the next episode of Orphan Black. Let's see how that works. I mean, that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, the impression I got, and I'm still reading about this like everyone else, to be honest, but was that the mic is built into the remote, and then the remote communicates Bluetooth to the box. So you kind of talk into the remote, which is interesting.
Yeah. I noticed that the remote was RF only, and a lot of people were saying they know that's a great thing, but I know from an integration standpoint, that could be a really bad thing.
I was just getting to that, and I think as we were having some technical difficulties, so I'm not sure if what I was saying earlier came across clearly or not, but in our world, the world I'm living in and you're living in right now, that's a very serious consideration, because the client specifically right now who brought this to my attention and who's asking about it, it's a distributed video system. So that basically means that this Fire TV is located down in the basement in a rack out of sight. And typically with a Roku or an Apple TV, we would just communicate with that using our handheld remote, which talks over the Wi-Fi to a processor, which then communicates via infrared to the device. Now, with this device being RF only, that limits you. I mean, if you're in an installation like that. Now, for the majority of people who are going to be looking at this device, they're going to be throwing it in a cabinet underneath the TV or possibly in a closet adjacent to the room, so that RF should work. But when you get into, I guess, bigger, more professional level installations, that is a consideration that people have to make.
Well, not even that. The problem, like, even if you had a Harmony remote, which is a simple, easy to program remote, my parents can program a Harmony remote, and they have actually.
That's true.
Kind of a funny story. That's only going to produce IR infrared commands to this device. So I don't know. The goal here is to remove remotes from the coffee table, not add additional remotes, no matter what kind of fancy features they may have. That's really the goal, to have a one-touch control over your entire system, where you press watch TV, you're watching TV. You press watch Fire TV, and you're on Amazon streaming services now, and that's our goal,
right?
And I kind of have to worry about this. It looks like it said that you could use the Kindle Fire to use it for remote control. So perhaps there's some type of IP related control, like TCP/IP commands that you can shoot to it on the technical side. So maybe they'll have that, but I hope that there's some other IR integration with this. If you didn't want to use the Bluetooth remote that came with it, you could use that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it really comes down to, like we talked about earlier, in addition to looking at the content sources that they're providing, it also comes down to your particular installation situation, and you have to be aware of that, of how you want to use it, what, where the box is going to be installed relative to the TV, what kind of remote do you want to use to control it? Are you okay with using the factory remote, or do you need to tie this into like a Logitech or, any other one of these universal remote options that there's dozens of? So, I mean, that's a big consideration. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize that right off the bat.
No, it's easy to add these devices in, but, it could get really complicated. I was listening to somebody on another podcast. I think it was Merlin Mann on one of the podcasts that he was on, talking about how hard it is to use these devices, and tell for him it's easy, but when a babysitter comes over, how do you tell the babysitter how to watch Apple TV?
Right.
I mean, that's a problem. And he was talking about having to write out instructions for somebody just to watch a TiVo, and I was kind of finding all this pretty humorous, but that's the way of the world if you're not using an integrated solution like a Harmony remote, which is a perfectly fine remote to use, if it's set up and programmed correctly, and it's pretty easy to do. But if you have an RF remote like this, this Amazon remote, what happens to that? What happens to that device when it gets lost in sofa cushion land or something? You can't use it now. There's no way to use it.
No, they just the whole point of what we do, and even like you made a great point, it's not even just at the high end. It's everyone is trying to get it down to one remote. So it's not just at the high end. It's even people that are just the do-it-yourselfers that want to have that Logitech remote that just you can hit Fire TV or Apple TV or whatever source it is you want to watch. You want to hit one button and you want that source to come on. Well, that all falls apart instantly as soon as you have a device that's RF only.
Right, and it hurts us. It hurts a broad range of installations. Like you're talking about the remotes you have are probably $1,000 plus, and the remotes that down to a Harmony remote, which is about $60 or $70. I mean that hurts. I mean to invest $1,000 into a remote and then not be able to control that device with that remote.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
it's not a good conversation to have with your clients.
It's not. It's definitely not. So it's just something to consider if you're comparing devices.
Yep. So I think that's pretty good for today. We've done a lot of
we're running short on time. I think we've covered enough here, so we can wrap it up.
So where on the internet would people find you, Jason?
Yeah, Twitter at Jason Griffing is going to be the best bet for sure.
Yep, and I'm at Seth P. Johnson on Twitter as well. You can also get in touch with Jason or I both on HomeTech.fm, and we've done some little changes to the website. I guess it just went live. There's a blog on there now, so if you want to check that out, Jason and I are probably doing a little bit of writing throughout the week and posting a couple articles.
We're going to start to roll that out a little, slowly, but we'll start adding content to there. So people should definitely come by and check out the website. Maybe leave us some feedback. We would love to hear from listeners and let us know how we're doing. Let us know if there's any topics you'd like to hear covered. It would be great to hear from them.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Thank you, Jason.
All right. Thanks, Seth. Have a good one.
You too.